Hey, this is Wookie from Mandala Studios. Welcome to the workshop. This is part 2 of making an Ayuwoki mask moulding. So quickly running through this, we're going to start by making clay walls. We're going to cut off slabs of clay about 6 to 10 mil thick with our new clay cutter. You'll have just seen us make if you watch our videos. We cut those into strips just over an inch wide, and we're going to lay them around the halfway point roughly of the mask. We're going to pull them slightly in front of the ears to make life for demoulding easier. We cut the strips equally sized and then angle the ends so they butt into each other, and we just work all the way around, getting around the neck as well. They all get reinforced and pushed and held into place, as you can see there. Then we start putting some keys in by just spinning a round loop tool into the thing. Always make sure we don't put a key in the centre top, because that's where the mould split will be for the third part. Then we're going to make a mould of the face. So we pour some plaster into water, lukewarm water. Pour it in until the liquid is completely saturated with plaster. Once it's slaked through, we mix that up. And we're going to just start to brush that onto the face. You'll see, however, that at this point I realised I hadn't protected the back of the sculpt, so Lear is just quickly putting some paper towel on the back, wet it down so it stays in place so that any drips don't mar the sculpture. It's amazing how fast you can work when things are going wrong. Then we brush the plaster evenly over the face. Sometimes we'd do this lying down. I decided not to try it this time because I thought I'd save myself some time and effort. That was probably a mistake. I just didn't find the right bits lying around and wanted to get on with it rather than do it properly. Learn from my mistakes. We're smushing all of the plaster in as it's setting, and it's annoyingly hard work because of the angle I'm working at and trying to make sure I don't have any air bubbles. Once that's all smoothed out, we're going to cut some scrim. We use 6-inch wide Hessian scrim and mix up some more plaster, and we're going to just put a layer over the whole surface of the front to make a reinforcing coat, because plaster is very strong in compression and really bad in tension, so the Hessian fixes that. I like to fold the Hessian and use the folded edge to make the outside edge so that we've got some strength going on. Then we're laying the head down on another block of clay because it was getting too hard to do vertically. Like I said, I should have done it properly the first time. And we're just going to lay that round. We want an even layer or two over the whole surface with extra thickness around the side, like I said, folded, make a nice edge. And we just smooth that all over. I don't like my moulds to be too smooth. I want them so they've got a bit of texture for grip as I'm moving them around later. Then once that's all cured off, clean off the back, get rid of the reinforcing bits of clay and peel off the clay wall, and just neaten up the edge of the corners with a surf-form. Make sure we've got no bumpy overhangs, jaggedy bits that will cause you to cut your fingers as you're moving it around. Clean off the sculpture, quick brush, and everything's good. Then we're going to quickly whip off some more slabs of clay, cut into strips, and we're going to use this to work a dividing line down the centre back of the head. You can see I'm putting some reinforcing pieces in place to hold the things as needed, and cutting the clay walls so they match each other. Put some Vaseline on the exposed plaster from the first part of the mould, and then put some walls onto the side of that so it's very hard to get plaster going over the edge. Once that's all done, we're going to make some little pry points, put those in so we can pull it apart, then protect the second half of this, or the last quarter part of the sculpt, with another bit of wet paper towel. Then quick spray of matte wax to make sure any exposed plaster is definitely not going to bind. Then we're on to moulding the side. Again, we mix up some water with some plaster, let it slake, and then brush it on. Working into the corners, make sure we've got good even coverage. Normally we make moulds with 2 people, but this is a bit too awkward, so I'm doing it by myself this time. And we just get a good thickness by brushing it on, making sure to go underneath. Then we're going to mix up the plaster for the reinforcement layer. And we're going to soak the plaster, or soak the hessian in the plaster, and push it on again. Once that's done, we're going to clean up the edge, make sure there's no burrs, peel away the clay wall, and reveal the last part, and just make sure everything's nice to work with. Then we're on to making the last bit of walls, just neatening up that bottom edge. Vaseline releasing the plaster again. And once that's all coated in Vaseline, we're going to go around and put plaster on the clay on the sides so that we can't overlap it with plaster as we cast it. This is just a thin strip that we smush into the edge. Gives us a nice thickening area as well. And once all that's in place, we add some more pry points. And we're ready to mould. Again, it's just repeating the same process, brushing plaster over the surface, making sure to get it into all the detail and not leave any air pockets. Just constant keeping the plaster moving, don't let it slump too far. And then once you've got your nice shell, you're going to reinforce it, make sure your plaster slakes as you saw there. And then again, folded edge around the corner, and just keep applying those strips of hessian to build up the shell. Once that's all set, we just peel away the clay walls and give the thing a brush with fingers and Surform. Make sure everything's neat. I'm doing this while the plaster's a bit soft still, so I can use my fingers to seal those edges. Then we're on to demoulding. We just pop a tool into the pry points and give it a twist, and the pieces come apart. Nice easy demould on this one. Then we just pull out the clay as best we can using wooden or plastic tools, make sure we don't damage the sculpture. For this it's mostly digging out clay from around the mouth and pulling it out of the ears, because obviously they had big undercuts. And once we've got the big lumps of clay out, we pressure wash the moulds with a very low pressure washer. It's not got any power to it, it's just essentially a tightened hose. But that works really well. Then we need to clamp the mould back together, so we're going to mix up a little bit of plaster and just first of all patch any small holes that we've found imperfections in our mould making while the mould is open. That means it's easy to get to things. Then we're just going to put the parts back together, and then we tape them up to hold them all in place, and then use the plaster in the batch to go along the seam inside and out, filling in our pry points with plaster, and that tends to be enough to hold everything together. I brush into the seam lines inside the mould and basically just try and get rid of as much of the mould line inside as possible and hold it together with plaster from the outside. And there you go. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to come again for the last part.